boys. How we doing today? We're
Doing all
live.
right.
We're live, boys.
How we doing? How we doing?
Doing good. We're doing good. Oh man. All right, boys. Third week, Chirp and Chat. Here we go. We got a lot of things to talk about today. Let's get right into it. Joey, you want to talk about Nathan Mackinnon?
Looking like he's going to get suspended for a long time.
Man, it's tough to see that. Tough to see.
Yeah, I mean,
I actually saw. Sorry, Joey. Go ahead.
No, you're good. We saw the same thing with Antoine Vermette a few years ago when he slashed a ref. I believe he got 10 games for that. Honestly, I don't see McKinnon getting any more or any less than that. And that if that does happen, that'll really hurt this Colorado team who relies on him that heavily.
Yeah, and I don't know. I might be mistaken, but I saw that the suspension was going to be lowered because the NHL PA came to a conclusion that he went. Not that it makes it any better, but he made to go slash. He went to go slash the opposing player, not the ref. In the video, you can see that. Who are they playing? Boston?
Yeah, Boston. They were losing 5-1 at the time.
Yeah, there was a Boston player right after the faceoff, right next to the ref. He went to go, swing his stick and hit his lower half, and he ended up missing and hitting the referee. So I think just because of that, I did see that the suspension is going to be a little bit lower than they were, first primarily anticipating, but doesn't make it any better. Just actions like that have no place in the game of hockey and really anywhere. So,
yeah, honestly, that genuinely looked like one of the dumbest things I've ever seen on an NHL ice before.
It was just it was a reckless play. I mean, guys, I love that. A lot of hockey players love to, show their emotions, and I love that they're so into it. And obviously, I'm one of those guys on the rink myself. But you gotta be able to know there's a limit. There's a line that you can't cross. And obviously, Nathan MacKinnon's an all-world player, but that doesn't exclude him from the punishments that a fourth line guy would get either. So you got to be a smart player before you're a good player. And he wasn't smart in that situation, and he's going to get penalized for it.
Yeah.
And let's some recent trade talks. I know there was one trade that happened this week.
Nick Ritchie got sent to Arizona.
Oh man, I mean, Nick Ritchie's kind of washed, some people say, but he got sent off to Arizona, which is a bold move. Now it's looking for to see what they're trying to tank for Connor Bedard to get ready for the next season.
Well, can I actually touch on that really quick?
Go ahead.
This is the whole thing. Obviously, I'm a Rangers fan, but I'm big on the Coyotes. I know a lot about all the teams, but the Coyotes are kind of one of those teams I like to zero in on because they, at the end of the day, they're a very interesting organization. They have a lot going on with the stadium situation and what they're going to do from here on in, how they're going to try to lure free agents in, not playing in a big market. I've always loved looking at the smaller market teams to see what they do to get big free agents to play for them. But kind of looking at these, there was 2 trades that involved the Coyotes and the Maple Leafs. The other one was Carter Hutton going from Arizona to Toronto for future considerations, obviously giving Toronto a little bit of goaltending depth heading into the postseason. But you look at it from the standpoint for Arizona. You got a guy in Nick Ritchie who they tried signing in the offseason. He obviously didn't go there because of the small market, and he didn't believe that they could make the playoffs. Joke's on him. He's going there anyway. But, Arizona, they get a guy with a lot of grit. They had some toughness to their lineup. And in terms of you look at it, they also sent Ryan Dzingel and who else did they say? They sent Ryan Dzingel and
Ilya Labushkin.
Yes, Labushkin, the young defenseman who I really liked, actually. I didn't think Arizona had any business trading him to Toronto. I thought he was one of those pieces that they could build around on that blue line. But they obviously thought otherwise. They traded him to the Maple Leafs. I think he's going to be a top 4 defenseman eventually there for the Maple Leafs. He's got a lot of defensive responsibility in his own end, and he obviously has some offense he can add to his game. But then you look at what they did. They took Ryan Dzingel off of the Coyotes' hands, and they actually placed him on waivers. And then he later got picked up by the San Jose Sharks, who all that tells me from the Sharks' standpoint of view, we talked about them last week. That just tells me that they're trying to get into the playoffs. Obviously, a few points out. So we'll see where this goes. But for the Coyotes standpoint, I like what they're doing. I don't like the Labushkin thing, but I think they're just trying to clean house, and I think they do have a bright future. But it's going to be longer than we may have initially expected.
Yeah, and actually to add on to what you were saying, I was in class today, and this is pretty funny actually. This kid in front of me was on his laptop messaging his friend. He saw the thing that Andrew Ladd's out, I believe, 4 to 6 weeks now because of an upper body injury. Which we all know his injury history in the past. That's not good for him. But he was looking at Arizona's roster. They only have 4 forwards under contract for next season. One of those includes Ladd, and one of the others is Nick Ritchie.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's going to be.
They're going to have a busy offseason.
Yeah, and that's why I like to look at these smaller market teams, because even if they're in a playoff position, it's tough to get key big name free agents and players of that stature to come to your organization just because the market is small. You look at a player like Artemi Panarin. When he was in free agency, the Columbus Blue Jackets offered him near $14 million a year. Just to stay with the Blue Jackets, he took $3 million less to go play in a bigger market with the New York Rangers. I mean, it happens all the time. Money is not the only thing that speaks volumes. Market, the fan base. You gotta remember these guys have to make a living wherever they play. This is their family's gonna live here and all that other good stuff. But the Coyotes, it's very interesting to see what they're gonna do. Obviously, gonna be playing in the ASU arena for the next 4 years. So I'm very interested to see what these next few off seasons include for the Coyotes.
And then what was else? And Montreal Canadiens on a 3-game win streak. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, Montreal looks good, and I don't think, first of all, coming into the season, I don't think a lot of people really expected them to. Nobody expected them to repeat what they did last year because, first of all, they snuck into the playoffs. They were not this, wreck house team where they just went into the playoffs. And, I mean, they didn't look like they were not safe at any point in their regular season. They just barely squeaked in by the skin of their teeth going into the playoffs last year. And they had a magical Cinderella run. There's nothing wrong with that. I love seeing teams pull that kind of stuff off. But especially when you heard about Carey Price being, going into rehab. It didn't look good for the Canadiens entering this season, but obviously they're worse than everybody else expected. Nobody really expected them to do much this year, but they're the worst team in the NHL. But I also don't think their coaching staff did them any favors. They fired a lot of guys, and it wasn't just the coaching staff, the management, a lot of upper class guys in that management staff got let go. The whole coaching staff got let go. I can go on and on and on about personnel and all this, but the fact of the matter is they didn't have the leadership and the experience in that coaching staff to bring them back to where they were last year or to really do anything of that nature this year, even in terms of making the postseason. So you look at a team like the Canadiens, they got a guy and an interim head coach we spoke about last week when he got hired, Marty St. Louis, obviously a lot of playoff experience, Stanley Cup winner, so he brings that mentality to the team. You see Cole Caulfield really flourished under him, and that Canadiens team is playing more like they did last year, even without Carey Price.
Yeah, it's definitely a way that when they brought in Marty, like it felt like the whole organization kind of changed. It was a lot to. It was a big thing that happened. The Canadiens are looking like they're playing like they're back in last year, how they made a Stanley Cup run in now or a couple years ago, whatever year it was. And it's like, like you were saying, Cole Caulfield, like he took Martin St. Louis took Cole Caulfield under his wing and taught him the ways that they have in the NHL instead of benching him and putting him back in the minors.
Right. And I think it's an interesting situation because coaching really plays such a major part, especially in the NHL. You look at these young guys, a lot of young guys have struggled early on in their careers. I keep using the Rangers as an example, but it's so keen to this certain situation. You look at a guy like Kaapo Kakko, so much talent, so much raw talent. He's a strong player around the net. He has not panned out the way the Rangers have wanted to. Alexis Lafreniere has shown a lot of bright spots. He's played better under Gerard Gallant. but that's just another example of and then on the contrary, you have got like Braden Schneider, Keandre Miller, Zach Jones, all happen to play on the blue line, but they're flourishing under a certain system with Gerard Gallant, Mike Kelly, that coaching staff with the Rangers. And, there's a lot of teams with young guys that are not getting the same opportunity like the Islanders. We always hear about Kiefer Bellows not getting the time that he deserves. That's one guy that I feel like has proven he deserves to play, in that lineup, especially on a struggling team. But that veteran mentality, that certain type of coaching staff has not given their younger players the, opportunity to flourish. I want to let Joey speak on that because he is an Islanders fan. But, in terms of the Canadians, they brought in a coaching staff, at least for the moment. They know how to control younger players and help them flourish. But, that's what I have to say about Marty St. Louis. Joey, what do you think about that?
I mean, yeah, touching on the Islanders part of that, I mean, every coach hiring, firing, it has its trade-offs. I mean, in the past, we've seen a lot of mid-season firings work out for teams, not necessarily make the playoffs, but it's provided a spark that in the long run helps the team out, at least for the rest of the year. Yeah. We saw it with the Islanders, actually, when Jack Capuano was fired. They went on a run with Doug Weight. The Magic didn't continue the next season, and that's what led to Barry Trotz. I mean, and you look at that hiring. I mean, he plays in a system that, like, honestly, I don't even know how you would describe it. It was like this very defensive style of hockey. They really not aggressive offensively like they had been in the past.
Well, they play a 3-4 trap. They play a 3-4 trap. It's a very defensive heavy system, and it worked for a little while. But
it did.
I feel what for the Islanders?
Yeah.
Yeah, for those past 2 years, they were obviously a very lethal team, making it deep into the playoffs. The Islanders looked very good. And we're not going to act like they didn't lose some guys like a Devon Taves or a Jordan Eberle, but it doesn't make an excuse for the fact that Barry Trotz, Lou Lamoriello, those guys, they haven't been able to adapt and make the change they need to do because the Islanders roster is good. I mean, they really have not changed much. You look at that team on paper, they should 100% be a playoff team.
I think they honestly improved from last year, looking at what they did in the offseason.
Yeah,
right.
They definitely did. I definitely saw a difference.
But one more touch on the coaching thing, Joey. You look at it, and in terms of teams, you touched on it. You said not necessarily looking for a playoff berth, but you're looking for a spark into next season. Let's just talk about what did Craig Berube do for the St. Louis Blues, and what did Rick Bowness do for the Dallas Stars? Number one, the Stars ended up making the Stanley Cup final. Okay, they did lose, but they made the Stanley Cup final 2 years ago, and then or 3 years ago, whatever it was, and
I think 2
years ago, and then you got the St. Louis Blues they had Craig Berube, who changed the whole culture in that St. Louis locker room, and obviously the emergence at the time of Jordan Binnington, who played absolutely phenomenal. So a lot of new faces. It could really turn your season around, and it's unfortunately too little too late for the Montreal Canadiens. But I'm not too sure that they're going to be in the same situation. I don't think they need to rebuild. I think they can, and they have the attraction in terms of a market and everything that is in Montreal, the history behind it, to attract key free agents. Montreal could be a top 4 or 5 team in the Atlantic next year.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a good way to look at it as well. Let's get right into Player of the Week. Gianni, did you find a Player of the Week?
Are we doing who the NHL put? Or are we going to get – I think we should give our own Player of the Week.
Maybe do NHL Player of the Week, whatever you got in mind. Did you ever find one?
Let me think for a second. I need a second to think of my NHL Player of the Week. First of all, I'm not going to say the Player of the Week per se, but I think he's one of the best players in the league. But I think he's unfortunately a little underrated in terms of the best 5 players in the NHL. Austin Matthews is unbelievable. And
a little bit of a brutal
he ran into the crossbar the other day, obviously. But Austin Matthews is really just such a phenomenal hockey player. And the thing that kind of separates him from a lot of other incredible players in the league is his defensive game. His defensive responsibility in his own end is something like not a lot of these top players can do. He is so responsible defensively at his own end in the neutral zone. He causes so many turnovers for that Toronto team, and then they turn around and he'll put it in the back of the net. He's such a well-minded, strong player mentally and physically. Austin Matthews is really that guy for me.
Yeah, and I just looked it up. The NHL's player of the week this week, another Calgary Flame, Elias Lindholm.
He's been unbelievable. I mean, he's been incredible. He is an 8-game goal streak right now for Elias Lindholm. Off the top of my head, I know that. He's an 8-game goal streak.
Yep,
Obviously,
still going on.
That was one of the best moves they ever did, prying him from Carolina.
Yeah, that was solid. I love how the NHL like looks at the guys like who are like honestly underrated.
Yeah, Lindholm this year has been a top 30 player in the NHL.
Oh, easily.
On a Calgary team that, first of all, I still don't think they're going to win a playoff round. I'm going to go back to that. The Flames are not winning in the first round.
Give them something.
No, I don't. They're going to.
It depends who they play for me.
They're going to cool down.
Monahan.
They're going to cool down. Listen, they're going to cool down. I don't like their defense. I like Oliver Killington. I think they need to make some moves at the deadline to strengthen their blue line. Okay, and obviously Markstrom's a phenomenal goaltender. Their depth scares me. I'm sorry. Their depth scares me. I don't think going into the playoffs, if they play an experienced playoff team in the first round, I don't think they're winning that round. I just don't. I can't see it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they had a very solid team this year. You know, starting with Jacob Markstrom and net in between the pipes. Then you have now Elias Lindholm, who's a great. You know, he's a defenseman, isn't he?
He's a winger.
He's right winger.
I'm getting Hampus Lindholm mixed up. He's a great winger for the Calgary Flames. Then you have Johnny Gaudreau, Sean Monahan. Like, you have these great players building up their potential. I know you're gonna say to me, Johnny Gaudreau's washed. Sean Monahan's no, that's not the case. Like, I could see
No. Let me stop you there. No, I'm not saying they're washed. They are talented. They are still producing, and they're very productive, and they're still young in their careers. All I'm saying is they don't have the playoff experience to get into the play. They're going to get into the playoffs, but they don't have the experience, just like the Rangers. I'll use the Rangers again. They don't have that experience.
Bruh.
They don't. I'm sorry. The only thing that I'll give the Rangers and Flames credit for is that they have a very experienced coaching staff. Okay, Gerard Gallant and Daryl Sutter both are very successful coaches.
Fair enough.
But in the roster-wise, they don't have enough for me in terms of they both need to make moves at the deadline. If they can make some moves at the deadline in terms of adding some veteran presence, then I might change my mind. Then we'll revisit this conversation. But as of right now, today,
next week as we're easing into the trade deadline, there's lots of trades have been speculating, a lot of rumors. So we're going to cover all here on Tuesdays at 5:30. You know, on Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. Here and there, on YouTube. All right, Titanium Tuesday, boys. It's that time of the week. Colorado's sitting at first place, 36-10-4. What do we think about that one?
I feel like that's about expected for me.
Yeah, I could say it's about expected.
Colorado. I mean, there's nothing really to say about Colorado. The best team in the league. So.
And guess who's in second place? Just take a wild guess.
Go ahead.
Florida Panthers, 35-10-5. Almost the same record. These two teams, I could see them potentially a Stanley Cup final.
This is the thing. People tend to forget the Panthers, they lost. Last year, they are a better team than they were last year. But the Panthers went to the playoffs last year hot, okay? Let me remind you, with a very experienced and successful head coach in Joel Quenneville. They don't have him anymore, okay? He got fired for obvious reasons. They have an inexperienced head coaching staff and you know, down the line, it's very inexperienced. The Panthers are another one of those teams that have not been there and done that. That's why I look at the East and I say Pittsburgh Penguins are winning the East. Carolina Hurricanes can do it. They have personnel that have done it, been there and done that. They can walk the walk, talk the talk, just like the Bruins. I think they'll even be there in the end. I really do.
Yeah, I think the experience comes back again there. Like, I've heard people joke like the Maple Leafs right now have the same exact Stanley Cup odds as the Arizona Coyotes. I mean, like, you could just about pretty much expect where some of these teams are going to be bounced.
Right. Anything can happen, obviously. Once the playoffs, anything happens. But it just looking at it from experience point of view, because it is such a massive thing in hockey. It's a 7-game series. I just don't see it happening.
It's a great way to look. Let me look at the next one. Here we got Carolina 35-11-4. Carolina doesn't surprise me. They're up there.
Nah, me neither.
Gianni,
Great team. Great team. The only thing that scares me, I think we touched on it last week. I don't think their goaltending is going to get it done. I'm not the biggest Freddie Anderson fan.
Yeah, I think Freddie's pretty okay. I mean, they had a lot of controversy with this, but Freddie's pretty washed.
I think he's good.
Yeah,
I think Carolina makes him better. Makes him look better than he actually is. I think he's a good goaltender, but he's not going to get you a Stanley Cup. That's just me.
Yeah.
I think to add on to that, like looking back in his time at Anaheim and Toronto, I mean, he's had questionable playoff performances. We'll leave it at that. But even like behind Freddie Anderson, you have Antti Raanta too, who has an injury list about the size of a scroll. You know,
right.
It seems like that guy's hurt all the time, and that could be huge if you don't have a backup goalie. You're going into the AHL system, bringing someone up that. In the long run, that's going to hurt a team.
Look at Pittsburgh. All those years they won the Stanley Cup. They had Matt Murray, who was unbelievable. And I think
that's true.
First of all, Matt Murray needs to be a starter on a playoff team. If you look at what he's done in Ottawa, it is remarkable what he's done. And
he doesn't exactly have a lot of help.
He has no help besides maybe Eric Brandstrom and a few other younger pieces. Thomas Chabot's been injured for Ottawa for a long time. Matt Murray, what he's doing over there in Ottawa, he deserves to be traded to a contender. And look at he's been phenomenal. He's a 2.69 goals against average on an Ottawa team that has been horrific this year. They fight, but they don't have the talent. I mean, come on. Matt Murray's one of those guys, and then they had Marc-Andre Fleury, obviously. So I don't see it for Carolina. But moving on to number 4.
Got Tampa Bay Lightning 32-11-6.
The Lightning are very top heavy. Okay, the Lightning are very top-heavy. They lost a lot of their key depth players like Barclay Goodrow, Blake Coleman, Yanni Gourde. They lost all those guys. They lost their whole third line that I just named in free agency. One to the Kraken into the expansion draft, one to the Rangers and one to the Flames, both going to via free agency. So the Lightning are obviously a phenomenal team. They have phenomenal goaltending, very strong defense, but their bottom 6 scares me.
There's not much to say about the Lightning. You know, they have their back-to-back Cup final wins, and now they could possibly make a third one this year, depending on how well their staff is, how their players.
Their bottom 6. If they don't make any moves, their bottom 6 is going to bounce them out.
I don't think they need to make any moves in the bottom 6. I think
they lost a lot.
Yeah, but
they
lost a lot of pieces.
And looking back from watching the Islanders, obviously being an Islanders fan, the most of the damage in those series were from the bottom 6 from Tampa.
100%.
Kucherov was kept relatively quiet. Stamkos didn't play the first year they played them, but the second year he was kept relatively quiet.
I wouldn't be surprised if Cal Clutterbuck, with all the trade rumors that's going on with him, don't be surprised if the Lightning are one of those teams calling the Islanders. I would not be surprised whatsoever, especially with his contract. Not at all.
Yeah, it seems like the Tampa Bay Lightning usually pick up the guys that have the really high contracts. They have the money for it. They're going to use it.
Yeah,
that's how that's how they take all the Rangers trades, and they take on these high contracts.
We shall see.
And the final and 5th, it's got 31-13-8 as the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Best team in the Eastern Conference. They're going to the Stanley Cup final.
Putting
money on it.
Get the hell out of here.
Putting money on it.
That is completely false.
It is not false.
What are you talking about? It is false. The Pittsburgh Penguins are.
Do I need to go through this again? Let me go through it. Let me go through it, baby. Let me go through it, buddy. Listen to this. Listen to this. What do the Pittsburgh think about it logically? And Joey, I don't know if you back me on this, but let me just say this about the Pittsburgh Penguins. I'm a Rangers fan. I can't reiterate that enough.
I fucking hate the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Listen, you cannot deny. I was a Rangers journalist for 4 years. I had to be unbiased sometimes. You cannot deny talent, even if it was a damn rival. Look at the top 6. First of all, they have a top 3 coach in the NHL. Mike Sullivan is fantastic. You look at their top 6. Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin. First of all, that's your 1-2 center punch. Arguably the best center punch in the league. 1-2 center punch, arguably. 100% top three. Both of those guys, bona fide superstars. And Evgeny Malkin looks like his whole career is rejuvenated after his surgery. Okay. I could go on and on about the strength of their wingers they have. The depth is crazy. Their bottom six, they have a guy like Zach Aston-Reese who can kill penalties. They have Teddy Bluger, another really good playoff piece. There's so much going
I don't
for them.
want to hear it. It's
Their
all
defense
BS.
is so stout. They have Chris Letang, who's looked awesome this year. They have Brian Dumoulin.
BS.
I can go on and on and on and on. John Marino is such a good player, young and underrated.
Nope.
Goaltending, they have Tristan Jarry, and I think Casey DeSmith is pretty good, but the Penguins will acquire a goalie at the deadline. I'm telling you right now. They're going to get a backup, and it might just be Yaroslav Halak or Thomas Greiss. Just saying. Putting that out there right now.
No, Pittsburgh is not.
Or even Anton Hudobin, or even Anton Hudobin.
I don't care.
This is what I'm going to say.
You should care. You should care, because if the Rangers play the Penguins, they might get bounced. I'm just saying right now.
Then
they might just get
right
bounced.
now,
The
I ain't
Penguins
gonna worry about it because
the Penguins are the best team in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
Saying it right now.
There's the
I'm not
door.
watch. Okay, well, I'll talk to you in the playoffs when they come. Don't give me the hand. Don't tell me to get out. You get out. Watch what happens.
Yeah, this is what I'm going to say.
Go ahead.
I agree. I think Pittsburgh can make a run. I don't necessarily think they're the favorite, but I think they could make a run. But the one thing that they're going to need is goaltending. If we look at last year, their playoff series, if Tristan Jarry couldn't stop a beach ball glove hand, if Pittsburgh got any goaltending that Islander series, Pittsburgh wins in about 5.
Right. 100%. That's all I'm saying. That Tristan Jarry's rejuvenated his career. First of all, this is his career year. He's been absolutely phenomenal. But they will be acquiring a backup goaltender. Forte, look at me. Look at me, Forte. Tunnel vision, baby. The Pittsburgh Penguins are winning the Eastern Conference, and they will be acquiring a backup goaltender at the trade deadline.
That's not happening.
29 days is the deadline. 9. Okay, 29 days the deadline. Pittsburgh, watch. Don't forget Brian Boyle's also been a pleasant surprise for them too.
Not happening.
Okay. I want to see the Rangers do it, but it's going to be the Penguins.
We'll talk about that more next week.
Actually,
we're going to wrap up.
I'll add something else too. I think historically, the Penguins goaltending, that's been a problem in the playoffs too. Like they've had starters that just can't get the job done. We look in 2013, the Islanders lit Marc-Andre Fleury up. They had to get Thomas Vokoun to come in and do the job. Vokoun carried them to like the conference finals that year.
Right, and the Rangers played Pittsburgh back in 2016. Obviously, Carl Hagelin with the game winner in overtime. They won that series as well. Marc-Andre Fleury let up a few softies, and I think that eventually led to the availability to him in that Vegas expansion draft. But this is not a shit on Marc-Andre Fleury show. This is a NHL podcast. So remember what I said about the Pittsburgh Penguins, though, Forte. I'm not.
Okay.
You can hold me to that.
We'll talk about one the next week when I'm back at my set. I'm currently at my basketball game at my college, but so for the shows for the next coming shows, Fan Zone tonight at 7:00, and then on Wednesday we have the Sports Mania at 4:00, On the Court at 7:00, and then AEW Injection live after Dynamite at 10. Thursday's the B Show. Then we come back on Monday to Smoke and Mirrors at 7 p.m. And then we come back here Tuesdays next week 5:30 for Chirp and Chat.
Let me say one more thing.
Okay.
As we close it out, first of all, thank you to everyone who joined. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, okay. Thank you to my co-hosts Ryan Forte and Joey Grasso for being such pleasant people to talk to. Number 3, okay. This weekend, to all my Ranger fans that are watching, Thursday, big game against Washington. All right, huge game. And then Saturday, forget the Winter Classic. We got a big game against Pittsburgh. All right, and now I just pumped up the gas already a little bit for them. We got to go beat Pittsburgh. And number 4, all right, all I'm saying is, let's go Rangers, baby. I had to throw that in there. And thank you all for watching. I love you, everyone, every single one of you. Thank you for joining.
We'll see you guys next week. Take it easy, everybody.